So what did Reagan Kalaki do after teachers in Edmond, Oklahoma received a slideshow saying they should avoid using the terms diversity and white privilege? So a diverse group of students and educators filed a lawsuit today, reading off the ACLU website, challenging an Oklahoma classroom censorship bill, which severely restricts public school teachers and students from learning and talking about race and gender in the classroom. The lawsuit was filed by the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU of Oklahoma, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, and Pro Bono Counsel, Schulte, Roth, and Zabel. So Oklahoma is one of 8 states that have passed similar laws. So he called the ACLU and sued the district. That is what he did. And I'll put this up on Blackboard in case any of you want to read the whole thing. But I would like, if we could, to go to the 1619. This is another contentious thing. Now this, if you'll notice, in the top corner is just ideas. All right, so this is just what Adam Serwer thinks. All right, it's not purporting to be the gospel. This is an opinion piece, which
It looks like it's just talking about a discussion between authors from the New York Times and scholars, which I think is...
yes.
Yeah, it would just be more of a description of facts and ideas than anything else.
Yes, so this one shouldn't be like the one I ripped up. But let's
This is the only class that made you rip things up, and it's twice now.
yes.
And we're breaking out to this.
Yeah, why stop doing that? You got to stop doing that.
Trees are my enemy.
Trees are the enemy. So he says, when the New York Times Magazine published its 1619 project in August, people lined up on the streets in New York City to get copies. So this 1619 project is another thing that's got people rioting in the streets. It's a very contentious issue. This is contentious issue day in state and local government. When is it not? Well, we don't have Rob here, so it's been pretty quiet today. But to get copies. Since then, the project, a historical analysis of how slavery shaped American political, social, and economic institutions, has spawned a podcast, a high school curriculum, and an upcoming book. For Nicole Hannah-Jones, the reporter who conceived of the project, the response has been deeply gratifying. They had not seen this type of demand for a print product of the New York Times, they said, since 2008, when people wanted copies of Obama's historic presidency edition. I know that when I talk to people, they have said that they feel like they are understanding the architecture of their country in a way that they had not. So as Damien rightly pointed out, U.S. history is often taught and popularly understood through the eyes of its great men, who are seen either as heroic or tragic figures in a global struggle for freedom. And the 1619 Project does look at history through the date of the first arrival of Africans on American soil, and sought to place the consequences in slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of our national narrative. Skip down to the bottom paragraph. The reaction to the project was not universally enthusiastic. Several weeks ago, the Princeton historian Sean Willents, who had criticized the 1619 Project's cynicism in a lecture in November, began quietly circulating a letter objecting to the petition and some of Hannah-Jones's work in particular. The letter acquired 4 signatories: James McPherson, Gordon Wood, Victoria Bynum, and James Oakes, all leading scholars in their field. So what possibly is the problem with looking at American history through, quote, the consequences of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of our national narrative? What could possibly be the issue there?
There are a lot of people that feel that going too far in the way of reparations. I know talking to Rob yesterday, I kind of got that going from him. He actually kind of said it, is like going too far and saying, oh, the system's so far against them, we need to help them out. People are starting to feel that it's having adverse effects against their communities. Like, the system's rigged against these people, so we need to give them more of a shot at getting into college. And then that leaves people that are potentially more qualified, not giving them the opportunity to get into the same college with more qualifications.
Yeah.
And so people do have an issue with that.
Yeah.
However, I think people are equating reparations with history teaching, and that's different.
Exactly. And you and I are on the same page with that one, because that's what I got out of it too. Yeah. So their letter that they sent, we applaud all efforts to address the foundational centrality of slavery and racism to our history, but then veers into harsh criticism of the 1619 Project. The letter refers to matters of verifiable fact that cannot be described as interpretation or framing, and says the project reflected a displacement of historical understanding by ideology.
Putting my crackpot theory here, but what if CRT is just a way of reversing how we've been teaching history so far? What if we've not been teaching history in the right way? There are so many things I've learned in the last 2 years of college here at ICC that I haven't touched in the first 20 years of my life.
I agree with that. I don't think we teach history the right way in high school. I mean, because I feel like their description of our glowing heroic men is very accurate, because I feel like predominantly when you go through high school and you go through history class, it's all about all these heroic men who did this and that to frame America and all of our generals and war leaders and all that. But they kind of
So they're not, because like most of you have had me before, and what I try to do in my classes is, okay, yeah, this is the way it was set up. This is the way it works. Totally different. Your teachers hadn't done that?
I didn't learn until attending ICC and taking a history course here, and I'd taken 3 at SCSU, that Abraham Lincoln was not the absolute pro-black people, anti-slavery person that he is.
Really?
it was more convenient for him.
Really, yeah, he made decisions based on convenience, and he realized, yeah, he was not pro-slavery, but he was not so pro-slavery that he was willing to put his whole career on the line for it. I didn't learn that until here. I didn't know there were riots against the Civil War in New York.
Yeah.
You know where I learned that one from?
Where?
The movie with the 5 points. With Daniel Day-Lewis.
Lincoln?
What?
Lincoln?
No. So I don't know if it's Daniel Day-Lewis then. No, it's the one where it's the gang fight. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, Gangs of New York?
Yeah, Gangs of New York.
Okay.
That's the first time I'd ever heard of a riot against black people or a riot against the Civil War in New York was from a Hollywood movie. And then I actually learned that was not, it took a dramatic turn of events in the movie. That was actually an event that happened, and it was because of the North was getting tired of fighting a losing war for slaves. I didn't know that was the case at all.
Yeah.
I think in the most whitewashed way possible, we were told that the North was just this beacon of freedom and liberty against slavery at all costs.
No.
At the end of the day, a lot of it came from slavery, and yes, the issue in the war started with slavery, but that was not a universal issue anyway.
Didn't Lincoln say something along the lines of, I would take the South back with all its slaves and chains if it would keep the Union together?
Yes, and I didn't learn that until my history course last semester.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is why it's not taking these Southern figures down that's the point of critical race theory. It's making everybody realize that yes, just because the North won the Civil War does not mean that the issue of slavery was gone forever. There were still some serious discriminatory laws in the North that took until the ratification of a few more amendments in the Constitution for it to actually stop. And yet now it's not as big of a problem as it used to be, but I mean, just take a look at the makeup of poverty-stricken neighborhoods. And that's why it's important to look at this, is because when you go back and you realize that a lot of these white people in charge during the Civil War, during the Revolutionary War, and hell, in the years after, were not as squeaky clean as we want them to be, and that draws issues, and that draws light and like attention towards the mistakes that they made and the policies that they made that are still in place today.
I feel like that's just a reality too. Like, people, like, every human's gonna make mistakes. But like, sometimes in history you try to like idolize them almost as like God figures, like they were above people.
Yes.
But in reality they were the same people that made mistakes and cried.
Eli, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say also on the point of Lincoln being portrayed as this like shining virtuous figure, he was also super terrible to the Native Americans while he was in office, and that's something that I didn't know until I talked with my Native American aunt. She was like, "No, we hate Lincoln. You know, he was awful to our people," and that's something that I was never taught in history class.
Yeah.
You know what, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I learned that right now from you. I had no idea about anything with Lincoln and the Native Americans.
Decades down the road, when we finally address this problem with African Americans in this country, and we finally start to get a more equalized piece, that's when this Native American struggle is going to come to the forefront. And that is when we're going to go through this whole thing again, except it's not going to be black people, it's not going to be slavery, it's going to be Native Americans. And there's going to be a huge amount of backlash towards a lot more presidents on both sides of the aisle, because for the first 2.5 centuries of our being, we just
Didn't care.
I think there is no more fitting word than rape the Native Americans, in every way, shape, and form. But that's just not the current issue. That's kind of the point of CRT. Is
Okay.
realizing that not everything is as shiny as it needs to be.
Let me tell you something. This class today, right now, is making me question and rethink everything I'm teaching you guys. Like, am I doing it the right way? Am I doing it?
I think you are, because it's only through your teaching we got to have this conversation.
And represent?
Like, the topics you bring up and the way that you just choose to describe things and the articles that you bring in are what allow us to have these conversations.
But I totally screwed up critical race theory.
We all made mistakes. I described it wrong on Monday too.
I had no clue what it was. I still have no clue what it is.
It's
Okay.
a very big gray area, and I think that's because it's not as big as people make it out to be, but that doesn't mean that the way you're teaching things is wrong.
And it's also not like you're trying to project it on this either. You know?
No, I wasn't. This was just an informational article.
I would rather have a teacher that admits their mistakes and we're able to actually have a conversation about it and the entire class is able to learn a lot more and discuss things than have, like, for the first 18 years of our lives, teachers that are just like, I'm the absolute right way possible. You're challenging me, go to the office.
Yeah.
Even yourself said you've changed how you teach as you go on. You don't teach the same thing every year. You
Oh,
try to
no.
Show it a different way.
No.
Right. I don't think you're going to make the same mistake next semester.
No. Oh, no, no.
And hell,
I'm teaching this class again next semester.
right.
So,
And you're,
and I'm saving the stuff this time, so I don't have to go back.
but I think you in the way that you've taught has given us an opportunity to discuss things as a class that I've never had before, even in the other 3 classes I've taken with you. And granted, we have less people in this class than we did last semester, at least currently. I think there's 7 versus 6 of us last semester.
Yeah.
But like, we're able to have discussions in this class that include you as well. You're
Yeah.
not like, all right, discuss, and you go and grade. It's like we're all able to talk and discuss things, and you're able to give a point of view from a completely different demographic than the rest of us. So,
It's just somewhat open-ended.
It is open-ended, yeah.
It's kind of moving more.
Well, the last thing I really wanted to do today, and I'll stop at 2:15 because this will take us kind of over, but I'll put this on Blackboard, is just to look at what the 1619 project is. And this all kind of just, it does relate to the whole San Francisco thing. I'm glad you got the 3 multiple choice. Bring in the rest of this. Consider, I mean, it says writing, debate, poll, short answer. They're all short answer. All right, bring it in on Monday. Please for the love of God, find a stapler. All right? By Monday.
Library and the printing center's got one.
All right. So I'm going to end the video here.